Good afternoon. My name is Kellyanne Boyce, and I proudly serve as president of the Chautauqua Women's Club. Thank you. Welcome to our Contemporary Issues Forum lecture, or CIF for short. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but we only have 2 more lectures to go. The summer has gone by so fast. So meet us here next Saturday and the Saturday after that at 3 p.m., same bat channel, through August 17th. Next Saturday, August 10th, we're going to welcome Burwood Yost, Director of the Center for Opinion Research and the Floyd Institute for Public Policy at the Franklin and Marshall College. He is also director of the Franklin and Marshall College Poll, which tracks public attitudes toward public policy issues and political campaigns. His topic title, The Tipping Point State, Public Opinion and Political Preferences in Battleground, Pennsylvania. So please join us for this timely lecture. The Women's Club is a vibrant and rich organization. We have an amazing history. For 135 years, we've empowered the community through education, leadership, and life-changing scholarships for students. This summer, we proudly gave $40,000 to Chautauqua Institution, bringing our total to over $1.8 million in scholarships for students. But what we do best is provide you with opportunities to meet new people, build lifelong friendships, and be part of a welcoming community. That is why the Women's Club is known as the heartbeat of Chautauqua. If you are a member, we thank you and encourage you to get involved. Volunteering is the easiest way to meet new friends, and if you're not yet a member, we have a membership table over there. You can sign up with our lovely ladies. You can also sign up on our website or just come down to the house next to the Athenaeum Hotel. We are incredibly grateful for our 2024 program sponsors for their generous support and belief in our exceptional programming. Your support helps bring relevant, thought-provoking speakers and some of the best programming to the grounds of Chautauqua. Our 2024 program sponsors are Sherry Gillette Sigward, Lauren Rich Fine of Greece Financial, Terry Tucker and Stephen Still, McGee Women's Research Institute, and in memory of our dear Rita Arjun Auerbach, lovingly gifted by Kathy Bonner, Mary Lou Goodman, and Josette Raleigh for Rita's dedication to the Chautauqua community and her absolute love for the Women's Club. Today, Amy Herman will talk for approximately 45 minutes, followed by 15 minutes or so of Q&A. After her talk, please queue up to one of the 2 mics right up here in the front. We highly encourage you to ask questions, including the folks on the lawn. Hopefully they're not going to get rained on. But to keep our Q&A moving, please keep your questions concise and no Chautauqua prelude. Today's lecture is being videotaped by Ed Tomasini, which includes the Q&A session. If you don't want to be videotaped, please refrain from asking a question. And when you are asking a question, please come right up to the mic about 1 inch away so the audio can be recorded properly. Thank you, Ed. So today we welcome Amy Herman. I hope you all had a chance to read Amy's article in today's Chautauquan Daily. I always love to thank each Saturday Deb Treffs for her outstanding coverage of the Women's Club speakers. Where's Deb? I always like to give you a hand. Thank you, Deb. So now on to Amy. Before I begin, I want you to know that Amy spent about 11 hours at LaGuardia Airport yesterday trying to get here. After 3 delays, couple flight cancellations, and major stress to find another flight to Buffalo, she finally arrived only a few hours ago. Talk about stress. So I want to thank her for going above and beyond so she could be here with us. So thank you, Amy. So Amy Herman is a lawyer, an art historian, who uses works of art to sharpen observation, analysis, and communication skills by showing people how to look closely at painting, sculpture, and photography. She helps them hone their visual intelligence to recognize most pertinent and useful information, as well as recognize biases that impede decision-making. She developed her Art of Perception seminar in 2000 and to improve medical students' observation and communication skills with their patients when she was the head of education at Frick Collection in New York City. She subsequently adapted the program for a wide range of professionals and leads sessions internationally for the New York City Police Department, the FBI, the French National Police, the Department of Defense, Interpol, the State Department, multiple Fortune 500 companies, first responders, retailers, and the military. In her presentations, she demonstrates the necessity for astute visual literacy and how the analysis of works of art affords participants an innovative way to refresh their sense of critical inquiry and skills necessary for sharper performance and effective leadership. The program has been featured in New York Times, The Wall Street Journal, CBS Evening News, and Smithsonian Magazine, among others. Her TED Talk, A Lesson on Looking, went live in 2018. Amy holds a Bachelor of Arts, a JD, and an MA in Art History. Her book, Visual Intelligence, Sharpen Your Perception, Change Your Life, published in 2016, was on both the New York Times and the Washington Post bestseller list. And there are 3 books of hers over there on the table with Hope. Her second book, Fixed, How to Perfect the Fine Art of Problem Solving, was published in 21. Her third book, Smart, Use Your Eyes to Boost Your Brain, was published in 22. She's been extremely busy. There is a reception for Amy at the Women's Club at 5 p.m. today. Tickets are available on our website. Amy, on behalf of the Chautauqua Women's Club and the entire Chautauqua community, thank you for making the trek to Western New York. We are honored to have you with us. Let's give a warm Chautauqua welcome to Amy Herman.
Thank you. What a lovely introduction. I told Kellyanne that I came in from India 3 weeks ago, and it was easier to get home from India than it was to get to Buffalo. So I am overjoyed to be here, so thank you very much for this kind invitation. So as I'm listening to her introduction, I'm thinking, I'm going to be speaking about art today, and you're not going to be looking at any slides. I'm not going to be showing you any art. So I'm going to give you, no PowerPoint. I'm going to give you an assignment, as I do with all of my groups. The first thing I want you to do, and this is optional, but I'm going to encourage it, introduce yourself to the person next to you or behind you, so you have a partner. You don't have to, but do it right now. Okay, you all have a new friend. So now your next assignment. I want each of you to take, I'm going to time it for 10 seconds, and I want each of you to think of a favorite work of art that you have. It can be in your home. It doesn't have to be famous. It can be one visual image of a painting or a piece of sculpture or a photograph, and I want you to visualize it in your mind right now. About 10 seconds. All right, you all have something in mind? Okay. Now, I want you to turn to the partner that you just met. It can be the person next to you, the person behind you. One of you is going to close your eyes, and one of you is going to keep your eyes open. The person whose eyes are open is going to have 25 seconds to describe the work of art to their partner. But here's the rule. I don't want you to say, I'm picturing Van Gogh's wheat fields. No, don't use the artist's name. Describe the work of art. And don't say, I love this, it moves me. I want a visual description of the work of art in your head. So decide with your partner who's going to describe and who's going to listen. All right, you ready? Half the room, close your eyes. Half the room, close your eyes. All right, describers, I'm going to give you 25 seconds to describe. Ready, go. All right, open your eyes. Open your eyes. So my questions are, the listeners, did you get a good visual description of what your partner was talking about? And for the describers, were you really that good at describing something that you think you know so well? No, it's hard. Now switch places. I want the describer to become the listener, and the former listener to become the describer. The other half of the room, close your eyes. All right, describers, ready, go. That's wonderful. All right, open your eyes. Now, I'm going to tell you something funny. As I was watching you do this exercise, about a third of you were drawing it for your partner. You were shaping your sculptures and your paintings, and I thought, their eyes are closed, but whatever works, you know? This is what I'm doing. I'm teaching people to think about what we see, how we visualize, and most importantly, how do we communicate what it is that we see. So I just wanted to throw you into the deep end of the pool because I don't have slides, and I wanted to get you used to the idea of talking about not just art, but talking about what we see. So I'm going to start with a short story. I have lots of stories from my travels on the road. But in 2009, a young college graduate named Derek Kayango was staying in a hotel in Philadelphia. And he went in to take a shower. And he noticed in the shower that there was a small bar of soap in the box. And he was alarmed. He was on a tight budget. He was from Uganda, and he took the box of soap and he ran down to the lobby, put his clothes on, ran down to the lobby, and he said to the person at the front desk, "This isn't the same soap that I left last night. Where's that soap? I don't want to be charged for a new bar of soap." And the person behind the front desk explained that new soap was complimentary, and every time the room was cleaned, he would get a new bar of soap. And Derek said, "But what did you do with my old soap?" And they said, "We threw it away." He was horrified. Soap in Uganda is hard to come by. He called his father and said, "They throw away soap in the United States every day in every hotel room." He was so horrified that when he went back to Atlanta, he started going hotel to hotel to hotel and collecting all that soap. The Global Soap Project was born. He knew that over 2 million people a year die of diarrheal disease because there is no hygiene to wash your hands with soap and water through Africa. And thanks to the Global Soap Project, Derek Kayango and his family and his company scraped, melted, and disinfected over 100 tons of hotel soap, distributed it to 32 countries on 4 continents. Fast forward to 2022. I'm also in Atlanta, and I'm in the Atlanta airport. Now, for any of you that have ever traveled in the Atlanta airport, I had to make a tight connection from Concourse A to Concourse T, and I had 19 minutes. For any of you that know, Concourse A to Concourse T, connecting on Delta, I was running. And I don't know what possessed me, but I hadn't had coffee that morning. Yeah, so I had New York to Atlanta, and my connection leg was Atlanta to Oklahoma City, and I said, I need Starbucks before I get on that second leg. So I ran Concourse A to Concourse T, and thankfully there's a Starbucks next to my gate. Big sigh of relief. Now, for any of you who travel a lot, you know that there is an unwritten rule. If you have a tight connection to make, you can skip the line at Starbucks. You can just tap someone on the shoulder and say, I have a tight connection, can I go? And they will let you go. I have ceded my place in line many, many times. So I decide to pull the card because for the sake of my fellow passengers and my head, I needed coffee. So there's a woman in front of me and I tap her on the shoulder and I say, excuse me, ma'am, because I'm in Atlanta. Excuse me, ma'am, do you have a tight connection? And she said, no. I said, do you mind? I have a very tight connection. I really need my caffeine. Can I jump in front of you? And she looked at me and said, no. Yeah, my jaw dropped as well. I said, okay. And she turned around, she caught my eye, and she said, do you know why I can't let you go in front of me? I said, no, I just got here and I haven't had any coffee. I don't know why you can't let me go in front of you. She said, because I'm in pain. She said, I had my knee replaced 8 weeks ago. This airport is so big, and I've been on my knee for over an hour, and I cannot stand 1 minute longer than I have to. No, I'm sorry, I can't let you go in front of me. And I said, please don't worry about this. I'm so sorry. I know about replaced knees. I'm so sorry about this. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, tick, 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 I need the coffee. So she finally gets up to the front of the line, and she goes and she orders her, skinny vanilla latte with 3 stevias, and I say to myself, I need to fix this. I need to reframe the visual information in front of me and deal with it. So I snuck up behind her and I said to the barista, take that skinny vanilla latte with 3 stevias, add a cappuccino with an extra shot of espresso, and put the whole thing on my credit card, please. And she turned around. Now, I'm from New York. I know what she meant. She said, well, bless your heart. I said to her, you know what? You're having a bad day. If my buying you a cup of coffee makes it better for 5 minutes, we all win. She left Starbucks here, I left Starbucks here, I made my connection, got my caffeine, win, 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 right? Why do I tell you this story? Because I've learned over many years, we need to get what we need to get. We need to do what we have to do, but if we can lift others along the way, by all means, we need to do it. So we go from soap to Starbucks. What do they have in common? They have what I call visual intelligence, the title of my book from 2016. What is visual intelligence? Here's my definition. It's seeing what's there that other people don't. It's seeing what's missing that others should see. It's seeing the positives, the negatives, the invention, the opportunity, the upside, the warning signs, the quickest way, the way out, and the win. That's what visual intelligence is. And I believe that we can sharpen our visual intelligence by learning to look at works of art. I believe that it's not something we're born with, it's something that can be learned, but it's learning to see what other people don't and gaining clarity from multiple perspectives. Derek Kayango saw what other people didn't see in used soap. I had to reframe my situation, my situational awareness to get what I needed, but to bring someone else along with me. So that is the introduction to visual intelligence. And I just saw recently that there's a new posthumous book of Peter Schjeldahl's essays, the art critic for The New Yorker. A book recently published. And there were 2 quotes of Schjeldahl's that I wanted to share with you because they're really very germane to this concept of visual intelligence. He said, the less you look, the dumber you get. It's true. We need to look more. We need to look more and we need to see more. And then he said, and I love this one and I'm going to paraphrase it, he said loving works of art, and I'm going to paraphrase and say looking at works of art forces you to catch up with yourself. Looking at works of art forces us to catch up with ourselves. So what I thought I would do today is give you an overview of the work that I do with the Art of Perception, teaching visual intelligence, tell you a bit about my books, give you some examples of how I've put this to work, and then I'd love to open it to your questions. because it's not a natural connection to think I'm training homicide investigators to look at portraits and landscapes. So I want to be able to make that connection for you. As Kellyanne said in her lovely introduction, I am a recovering attorney. Let's get that out of the way. I'm an attorney in recovery, and I'm also an art historian. And I like to think that I took the practical aspects of each of those disciplines, legal analysis and visual analysis, and I combined them 22 years ago when I created this program. I hated the private practice of law, so I left. But I also knew that I loved art history, and I said there has to be a way to combine the two, legal analysis and visual analysis. So when I left the private practice of law in Princeton, New Jersey, I moved to New York City, and I started at the Brooklyn Museum. And as a lawyer, working in their development department, but 18 months later, I left the Brooklyn Museum and I joined the Frick Collection. I'm sure many of you know the Frick Collection, a gem of an art museum in New York City. And I became the head of education at the Frick Collection. And while I was there for 12 years. One day, one of my volunteers came running up to me and she said, "Have you heard about what they're doing at Yale?" And I said, "No, what are they doing at Yale?" She said, "I don't know, but I heard it's wonderful." So I've learned to ask questions in my career. So I called my colleague, the head of education at the Yale Center for British Art, and I said, "Linda, I heard you're doing something wonderful and unique and innovative. What are you doing?" She said, "Oh, you must have heard about our medical program." And she explained to me that they were bringing dermatology residents in from the Yale Medical School to the Yale Center for British Art and teaching them better observation skills. She said, "Come on up to New Haven. Come see what we're doing." So I took a day, and I went to Grand Central. I took the train up to New Haven, and I saw what she was doing, and I thought it was phenomenal. They're bringing medical students, taking them out of a clinical setting, bringing them to an art museum, teaching them to analyze. She wasn't teaching them about Turner or Constable. She was saying, "What do you see?" And I just thought it was wonderful. So on the train ride home, I thought to myself, how can I do this in New York without making it look like I stole it from Yale? So with Yale's very gracious permission and a number of conversations with the Yale Center for British Art, I got the permission to start a program in New York at the Frick Collection with my neighbor, the Frick Collection's neighbor, Cornell Medical School. And I called Cornell, and all I had to say was, I want to do a program at the Frick Collection based on what they're doing at Yale, and it's free. Well, they ran to the front door. They absolutely broke the door down at the Frick Collection, and it was wonderful. I had medical students coming and going, and it was using the treasures of the Frick Collection in an entirely new way. I wasn't teaching art substantively. I don't want to know what's wrong with Rembrandt in his self-portrait. Don't tell me there's temporal wasting. I don't want to know about that. Don't tell me about medical things. I'm not a doctor. Tell me what you see in layman's language. So the program expanded to 7 or 8 medical schools. And we had medical students coming and going, and it became lottery, it became very popular, and we did it year after year after year. And in 2004, we started this in 2001. In 2004, I was out to dinner with a few of my friends, and I was explaining to them about these medical students, and they don't just have medical students, with all due respect to any medical professionals in the audience, they don't just have vision like this, they have vision like this. It's all about hematomas and MRIs and brain tumors all the time. They didn't know anything about art, which they didn't have to, and they didn't really know anything else about the world. And one of my friends said, "Why are you just doing this for medical students? Why aren't you doing this for other people who really need good observation skills?" I said, "Like whom? Who else should I be doing this for?" And my friend said, "Cops, homicide detectives, crime scene analysts, forensic specialists." I could go on and on and on. And I thought, why am I not doing that? So that was Saturday night. Monday morning, I picked up the phone. I don't know who does this. I called my local police department, the NYPD. That poor man at the switchboard. I said, "Hello, my name is Amy Herman. I'm the head of education at the Frick Collection, and I have a great idea. I train medical students to enhance their observation skills, and I think you should send homicide detectives to my museum." Well, there was dead silence on the other end of the phone. And I was transferred this many times until I finally got to Deputy Commissioner Jim Fife, who became a dear friend of mine. I love imitating my New York City police officers because I love them so dearly. And he said to me on the phone, "Miss Herman, if this is such a visual thing, why are we on the phone?" He got it, right? Jim Fife and 7 of his colleagues came to the Frick Collection, all with their guns. It was the first time we'd ever had weapons that had to be checked at the front desk at the Frick Collection. And 6 months later, every new captain and homicide investigator had to be trained at the Frick Collection. So That collaboration, for some reason, made it to the front page of the Wall Street Journal on July 25th, 2005, and my world exploded. I got calls from all over the world, and they all said the same thing: come teach us to see like you did those cops in New York. I can't teach anyone how to see. I'm not a neuroscientist, I'm not a neurobiologist, but what I can do, and what I want to give you an overview today, is my very simple methodology it's called 4 A's. Every new problem, tumor, crime, conflict, situation, interview, product, trial, anything, interview, interrogation, we practice 4 A's. First, we assess our situation. We say, what do we have in front of us? Then we analyze it. We say, well, what's important? What do I need to know? What do I have? What don't I have? How do I prioritize it? Then we articulate it. We tell our teams, we tell our colleagues, we tell our supervisors, we send a memo, we send a text, we send an email, we have a meeting, and then we act. We make a decision. We assess, we analyze, we articulate, and we act hundreds of times a day, but we forget how intertwined observation and perception are to those 4 A's. So after the Wall Street Journal article came out, I quit my job at the Frick Collection. I don't work there anymore. It is my honor and privilege to tell you that I work with 13 divisions of the New York City Police Department. I work in every branch of the United States military. I train special operations Navy SEALs. I train shock and trauma nurses. I work with in financial services, in the hospitality industry, prison wardens, librarians, school teachers, blah, 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 nuns, 3 books, 2 TED Talks. You don't care. Why do I even tell you? You don't care that I'm on Delta Airlines every day after yesterday. Why I'm on Delta Airlines every day? Why do I tell you? Because I have a very unique lens across the professional spectrum. And after training thousands of people in hundreds of professions all over the world, I realized something. If you're in my session, you already have good, if not great, if not extraordinary observation and perception skills. That's not the problem. The problem, as I perceive it, is in the consistent breakdown of the effective communication of what it is that we observe. Something gets lost from our seeing eyes to our speaking mouths, our typing fingers, and our texting thumbs, and I don't know what it is, so I'm using works of art to fill the gap. And for some reason, it's working. I don't know why it's working, but it is. I don't have enough days in my calendar to fill the requests that I get. We have a joke in my family. My father's 91, and I call him and I say, you'll never guess who wants the art of perception. You'll never guess who called. And my father has a very droll sense of humor. He always says the same thing. He says, don't tell me, the Vatican. And I say, no, it's not the Vatican, and I'll tell him some, elite special military group. Well, last spring, guess who I got a call from? The Vatican. And I was going to go do a session for their press corps. And so I called my father. I said, you'll never guess who called for a session of the art of perception. He said, I don't know. I said, come on, guess. He said, I don't know, just tell me. I said, give me your one guess. I said, Dad, it's the Vatican. He said, imagine that, the Vatican. I tell you this, I basically have 3 goals for all my groups, no matter what they do, whether it's the intelligence community, all surveillance agents for the FBI take this class, I work in threat assessment. No matter who the group is, I have 3 goals. First, I want every single person in the room to leave thinking differently about one aspect of their work. I don't know what that's going to be. Number 2, I want to help them convert observable details into actionable knowledge. How do you go from what you see to what you do? And number 3, I want to help fix what's broken. Because after 4 years in a pandemic, let me guess, nothing's broken anywhere. What I try to do in my art training session is help people clean their own lenses, not only to see problems differently, but to see their human resources, their time, their human, their financial resources in a different way to come up with more sustainable and innovative solutions. But really what I'm doing, and I'm the first to tell you, it's not rocket science what I'm doing. I'm going to steal a quote from Henry James. I tell my participants in all my sessions, try to be the person on whom nothing is lost. Try to be that person on whom nothing is lost. And I have found that art is a very, very powerful way to get people to rethink how they see. It's not threatening. Everyone sees something, and no 2 people see anything the same way. So that is the introduction to what I do. And I wanted to give you a few examples, but I'm going to tell you a story that happened early on in my program. I started with the NYPD, and this was probably in 2008, 2009. I'm based in New York City, and I was on the subway one Saturday morning. And I learned working with cops early on, they said, if you even have a perception of a dangerous situation, just get out of it. Just get out of the situation, don't test it, just get out. So I'm on the subway on a Saturday morning, and I was not dressed for work. I was in a sweatshirt, and I was in jeans, and I had long hair at the time. I had my hair in a ponytail. I wasn't wearing any jewelry. And there were two, shall we say, shady characters in the car with me. And when I say shady, sunglasses on, they had tattoos on their cheeks, and they were pointing at me. And it gave me a very uneasy feeling. And they were pointing at me more, and they were laughing, and I'm thinking, I'm feeling more unnerved by the minute. So I decided to take my colleague's advice, and at the next stop, the train pulled in, and I thought, I'm gonna get out of the car. And I looked around, there were enough people to help me, just in case, but I said, I'm gonna get out of the car, and I'm gonna wait for the next train. So I had to walk by these two men, and one of them grabs my arm. I thought I was gonna vomit. I was just like, oh my God, why is this man grabbing my arm? And he leans over and he says, we're undercover, we took your art class. I said, are you kidding me? You're the reason I'm getting off. He's like, yeah, we couldn't figure out where we knew you from. We're like, where do we know her from? Where have we seen her? And then my buddy says, she's the art lady. Only in New York City. Only in New York City. The other subway story I want to tell you, and Deb wrote it in her wonderful article, but I want to tell you because it has to do with my books. First, I'm going to tell you how I met my agent, and it has to do with a concept that I talk about all the time called situational awareness. Situational awareness comes in two forms. Short-term situational awareness is, where am I, how did I get here, how do I get out safely, and how do I communicate where I am? Because for many of my critical mission, that's what they have to do. They have to communicate with their other team members. Short term, where am I, how do I get here, how do I get out safely, and how do I communicate? Long-term situational awareness is a problem you're well aware of, but you haven't wrapped your head around the solution yet. We know there's a situation, but we haven't solved the problem. So I'm always encouraging my 21-year-old son that putting headphones in your head and starting to scroll on YouTube at every possible moment cuts your situational awareness. It's an ongoing discussion we have. So in 2012, I was boarding a plane in Cleveland. I had taught 5 police departments in 5 days. I was tired, and I had a headache, and I just wanted to put my headphones in and hear the pilot say, welcome to LaGuardia, and feel wheels down. You're starting to see a theme, planes figure into all my discussions. I just wanted to hear wheels down, welcome to LaGuardia. And I'm sitting in my seat, and a woman comes up next to me, and she says, I have a seatmate, I'm so happy. She said, I've had such a wonderful time in Cleveland. I'm so happy to be able to talk to somebody on the way home. And I'm thinking, I don't want to talk to you. I have a headache. I'm tired, and I don't know how I'm going to tell you this. I didn't tell her that. We talked the whole way from Cleveland to LaGuardia. She was lovely, and I just never got around to telling her that I had a headache. And as we were exiting the plane, and I said to her, I really wasn't my best on the plane. Can we maybe switch cards and have lunch one day? I had a headache. I'm sorry. I wasn't very nice. And she said, oh, no, I don't give my card to anybody. And I said, you've just talked to me for 2.5 hours. What do you mean you don't give your card to anybody? And she reached over and she took mine. She said, because I'm a literary agent, but you have a story to tell, and my agency is going to be your agency, and you're going to write a book for us, and it's going to be on the New York Times bestseller list. They are my agent. I've published those 3 books through that agency. And I tell my son, and I tell anyone who will listen, I was a hair away from putting headphones in, turning on my music, and not having that conversation. It was a life-changing conversation. I have 3 books, a 4th in my brain, and an agency that sees my way in the world because I had a conversation. It's part of situational awareness. Look around. You don't know what opportunities and people and things are waiting to be seen. We are all tied to our phones, but it's such a convenient excuse not to look anyone in the eye because I'm going to look at my screen and not talk to you. The second story I'm going to tell you about situational awareness happened on the New York City subway, again, another theme in my life. As I was publishing the book Visual Intelligence, you should know that when authors publish their books, they don't really have a say in what the title is. the publishers choose the title that they think is going to sell the most books on Amazon and in bookstores. And you can say, yes, I like it, I don't like it, it really doesn't carry very much weight. So my editor sent me the title, Visual Intelligence, Sharpen Your Perception, Change Your Life. And I said, you know what, Eamon, my book's not changing anybody's life. I really don't like the title. He said, it changed mine. I said, oh, come on. And he told me the following story. He said he was on the subway pre-pandemic, 2015, and he was on the subway and a woman started to cough across from him. Now, if this were after pandemic, that would have cleared the car out. But she's coughing and everyone else is reading their papers on their phones, and Eamon looked at her and saw that her coughing was becoming more intense. Coughing, 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 and then she's rummaging through her purse, and he decided she's looking for an inhaler. She's having an asthma attack. She can't find her inhaler. Everyone else is ignoring the woman. And when the train came into the station, for those of you that have been on the New York City subway, you know there's a conductor in the middle car and the first car. Eamon gets out of his seat, he walks to the conductor in the middle car and he says, there's a woman in car 2316, she's having an asthma attack. She can't find her inhaler, you need to take this train out of service and call EMS right now. And that's exactly what the conductor did. As Eamon was leaving the station, EMS was coming down, they got to the woman, they saved her life. And I said to him, don't be ridiculous. You would have done that if you hadn't read my book. He said, yes, I probably would have said something to the conductor, but I probably would have said there's a sick lady in the car. But he took the visual information that he had. He took the number of the subway car. He told the conductor what to do. He gave him the language. Take this train out of service, call EMS, asthma, inhaler, do it now. And that's what the conductor did, and it saved that woman's life. It's about economy of language. It's about objective description. When I asked you to describe to your partner a work of art that you have, it doesn't help for you to say, I love looking at this, or it makes me feel calm. Does that tell your partner anything about what it looks like? Words matter. Words matter, communications matter. And with video and phones, we can replay things that people say, so we need to think about our communication. So I am using art as the vehicle to help people not only improve how they look, but what it is that they say and how they talk about what they say. It is challenging, it's intellectually interesting, and what I find the most gratifying is talking to the people with whom I'm going to work, finding out what their challenges are, what are their problems, and then finding the works of art that will lead to the discussion to help them address their problems. I never say to my groups, well, now we're going to talk about implicit bias, or we're going to talk about sexual harassment. No, I'll put up a difficult painting and say, okay, who's going to tell me what they see? And then when I have descriptions from 5 or 6 different people and we hear 5 or 6 different versions about the same work of art, I tell them what they missed. And I say, you can miss it in my class, but what happens when you're in the crime scene, you're in the courtroom, you're in the operating room? You don't have the option of missing. And one of my favorite things happened at the Frick collection. We were looking at El Greco's painting of Christ chasing the money changers out of the temple, 16th century painting by El Greco. And I said to one of the cops, tell me what you see. And Christ is in the center and he's chasing people out of the temple and it's an action-filled painting. And the cop points to Christ. He didn't know what was happening in the painting, and he said, I don't know who that guy is in the pink, but I'd put a collar on him. He is causing all the trouble. So what they do is they bring their own work, they bring their own perspective to these works of art. It's not threatening, and I use the F word, it's fun, we have fun. We actually have a good time, we talk about what we see. And in my class, you're not allowed to read the labels. Because if you read a label to a painting, it will tell you what to look for. Even by giving you the title, it will tell you what to look for. I'm not suggesting that labels are superfluous, but I want you to look first. And when most people go to museums, I spend a lot of time in museums watching people looking at art. People walk up to a label, they spend about 8 to 10 seconds reading the label, they look at a work of art, they take a picture on their phone, and in about 3 seconds, they're gone. I want people to do the opposite, look first and then read. So I'm really using art as the data. I'm using it as a different kind of vehicle. And the hashtag for my company, for the art of perception, look differently to see better. I can't teach anyone how to see better, but I can teach you how to look differently. And if just one person leaves my session looking differently, I've done my job. And one of the most rewarding calls I got last year, and I'm doing it again this year, I work for something called the White House Leadership Development Program. And the White House chooses 30 leaders from 30 different agencies in our government, and they send them to the White House for 1 year to learn how to be leaders, not only through the White House, but then to go back into their agencies and rise. They're usually younger, on the younger side, and rise within their agencies with the idea, the overarching goal to improve our government. I get a full day in the museum with those White House development leaders. And to watch them engage with art and look and sharpen their sense of critical inquiry, let them take that back with them. I want to put it in a box tied up with a bow and say, take this with you and use it every single day. So I want to thank you again for having me, but I'm very interested in hearing any of your questions because I know this is not a natural connection to think about forensic experts and homicide detectives looking at works of art. But it is great fun. It is intellectually engaging. We know how powerful works of art are, and I'm just channeling the power of art to be used in a very different way. So again, I want to thank you for the invitation, for having me come to speak about the art of perception, and I would be so happy to answer any of your questions if you have any. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, yes, we'll start here.
Which book should we start with?
That's a great question. I can answer it. The book Visual Intelligence from 2016 is the foundation of the work that I do. Fixed, How to Perfect the Fine Art of Problem Solving, was written right after the pandemic. That is about focusing on the process of making a painting and how we can use it to solve problems. And the third book, Smart, is an adaptation of visual intelligence for 9 to 14-year-olds. So I would start with visual intelligence. That's the foundation for all the work. That explains all the methodology.
And you're telling us this could be used to help us in any vocation?
Any vocation.
Oh.
Any vocation.
No, just Mark Russell, the comedian, I don't know if you know, satirist, Chautauquan, he studied art, which I thought was very interesting, and I was wondering, if you find it applies to satirists and humorists and people like that?
Absolutely, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because as I tell people, two things about studying art. Number one, it lays the foundation for how we see the whole world, whether it's color, form, line, perspective. But before someone is a satirist, before someone is an investment banker, before someone is a lawyer or a trauma surgeon, we are in the people business before we are in any other business, including satirists. And if we are better able to gauge our relationships, our reading of people, our understanding and description, we can do anything after that. And I believe that looking at art can help us engage better person to person. So, thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Yes?
Wondered if you worked with anybody from the Secret Service. They seem to have perception problems and communication problems.
Funny you should ask. I can only answer in a limited way, but let me tell you, it's a work in progress. Given what has recently happened with the Secret Service, fortunately or unfortunately, I am often called in after a problem has occurred. I have to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And what I do in those cases, I am often called by police departments after unarmed shootings, if there have been too many suicides, if there is sexual harassment, any crisis or trauma. The reason I come in is because I'm forward-looking. We need to take a critical eye on what happened. But whenever something traumatic happens in those agents have to go to work the very next day, and they have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And so if I can give them a path forward to look differently, my hope is they will see better. So the answer is yes, and it's a work in progress right now. Yes.
I'm a recovering physician. And
Aren't we all in recovery from something?
Right. And I was trained to see pathology and the difference between pathology and health and to see the differences.
Yeah.
Now I do street photography and spend a lot of time in art museums, awful lot of time. I don't have time to analyze what I see as a street photographer. I'm out there, I'm photographing happiness, color, life, relationships, connections, the opposite. So I sort of retrained my brain to see what's happy and healthy and positive. But I don't, unlike you, I can't relate what I saw. I trust my instinct, my intuition. And I believe I'm seeing on an intuitive way. So I take photographs really fast, and I see for the first time, once the photo's on the screen, I can say, I'm amazed by what I saw, but I never had time to consciously see what I photographed. Can you address that?
Yes, I certainly can. It's not an accident what you are describing. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the works of Malcolm Gladwell. And Malcolm Gladwell, one of his books is called Blink. And you know, I've read his books and we've presented at conferences, and the one place I differ from Malcolm Gladwell is when he talks about instinctive decisions, why you take a picture of a certain way, why we look at certain things, it's not as random as it seems. We have a tremendous amount of visual information available to us, and we act on it. And one of the things that I talk about in my class, and I illustrate it with paintings, is called the pertinent negative. What are we not seeing? And so when you choose to take an image, your brain is working in ways that you cannot even wrap your head around. You like certain things, you like certain colors, you like certain landscapes, and you don't like other things, and your brain is acting not only on those biases of what you like, but also what you don't like. You're acting on the pertinent negative as well. And so we have tremendous amounts of visual intelligence, or visual information available to us. When you hear fight or flight, you know, when we have these reactions, our actions are based on those biases. And so don't underestimate why you take certain pictures. Your brain is working in ways that you don't even realize. What you like, what you don't like, and then you have the physical manifestation of your photograph and you say, wow, I really caught that image. I wonder how that happened. It's your brain at work. And you're engaging in neuroplasticity because you enjoy. You're also incorporating all the pattern recognition from pathology. Pathology is patterns, and you're looking for asymmetries and symmetries and pathologies, and all that factors into your ability to take photographs. Thank you for the question. Yes.
Hi, another recovering physician.
Another recovering, yes.
Very interested in your work. What I was specifically wanted to ask you about was if you had any thoughts or experience with the visually impaired. People who either cannot see, have lost their vision, disabled visually, dreams, what you see when you're dreaming, and or what's known as mind sight, or what you can sort of sense through some kind of meditative experience, but not formally see visually, in terms of how that works with everything else that you're naming.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one of the greatest challenges I have. But what I'm seeing in the world of art, and most recently and most acutely, I was in India. There's a brand new museum in Bangalore called the Museum of Art and Photography. And I'm on their international board, and I do work with them. And one of the things that they have that I love is that they have all works of art. They have photographs and sculptures and paintings, but they also have tactile parts of those works of art that have been created for visually impaired people. So if someone is describing a painting, they'll put a section that's been designed for a visually impaired person into their hands, and as they're hearing the description, they can touch this. And so in their mind's eye, they can coordinate what they're feeling with what they're hearing. Now, for museums that don't have that tactile option, it's very difficult, because in a place like the Frick, if you touch something, everyone dies.
Right.
You know, it is just, alarms go off. And so in more traditional museum settings, it's very, very difficult to have this kind of program for the visually impaired. But also when I was in India, I was doing a session for the staff, and one of the staff members was completely deaf. And I said, well, how are we going to do that? And the technology at this museum was so amazing that he had an interpreter on his phone. I wore a microphone. The interpreter listened to me and signed on this person's phone. So he could hear in real time, without looking at me, what I was saying. The problem was he couldn't look at the art and look at me. So my answer to your question is, I think as museums augment their accessibility, this is a big part of what they have to do. But the exercise that I gave you initially is about the mind's eye.
Right.
You know, your partners, I love one of my participants, as we were doing this exercise, I was her partner, she said, the work of art looks just like my grandmother's bedspread. Well, that doesn't help me. I don't know what your grandmother's bedspread, but in her mind, she had a very distinct image. And I said, describe your grandmother's bedspread. So these descriptive skills can certainly help people that are visually impaired, but we have a long way to go. But I saw this at the Museum of Art and Photography, and I love the tactile aspect to work in tandem with the description of works of art. So we're working on it.
Very good.
Thank you.
Great.
Yes, hi.
Hi, thank you. Perception. Could you say a little something about the drama that resulted from the opening ceremonies of the Olympics regarding people's perceptions of that one particular bridge?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm going to start by telling you that I have my own bias because I was in France for the opening of the Olympics. I was in the town of Sancerre for the last 2 weeks, and it's quite a strange experience to be out of one's own country for the opening of the Olympics. When the French boat went by, everyone cheered, and I thought, where am I? You know, why is no one cheering for the United States? So what happened there, I like your choice of the word drama, reminds me of the line that people say, well, your perception is your reality. It's not. Your perception is not your reality, because no one says that your perception is correct. Perception is not an objective black and white issue. It would have never occurred to me to think of the images that I saw, art historian that I am, as a blasphemous representation of an art work. That doesn't mean that someone else who saw it doesn't see it that way, and I can't tell other people how to see things. You can't tell other people how to be offended. You can't tell them how not to be offended. I would have never seen it. But your choice of the word drama, in case you haven't noticed, we're living in inflammatory times. In case you don't know, we're having an election this year. Everything is on fire. So when we have these situations that are potentially flammable, they will become so. But we have to remember, no two people see anything the same way, physiologically, educationally, or by association through your eyes attached to your brain. So can I say those people are right or wrong? No, I didn't see it. But when they take that interpretation and say that it's absolute, it's not absolute. It can't be.
But am I correct that this was not Da Vinci's Last Supper, that the creator, it was an older painting? Am I correct about that?
My understanding was that it was not meant to be a mock of the Last Supper at all.
Right.
That was my understanding. But if someone chose to see it that way, I can't tell them they're wrong, but they can't say you were blasphemous, because there is no absolute in subjective looking at art.
Understood.
So it was, as far as I know, it was not intended to be. If others read that, I hate to say it, that's their issue.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, yes, we're good.
I just have to compliment you first, because you have so much in your head,
Thank you.
and you can take it apart and explain to us.
I'm looking at slides in my head while I'm talking to you, so thank you very much.
In the meantime, that's a real big compliment. But I'll tell you, when I get something for my wall, that's one thing. In other words, it's how I feel about the particular piece.
Absolutely.
There is no impression on I just look at it. That's it. And it talks to me.
It does.
And that's the way I like to buy art. But if for any other purpose anybody else is buying, that's a different knowledge that has to come in there.
Agreed, but if I stood with you in front of that work of art and I said to you, explain to me why this speaks to you and what aspects of this work of art speak to you, you would be able to do it. You'd have to think very hard, and you'd have to attach words to a gut feeling. But when anybody says to you, have any of you ever heard someone say, I have a sixth sense about this, or my gut tells me to do this? That's fine. But in emergency situations and professional situations, you need to be able to articulate what that gut is, because you can't arrest someone on a gut feeling. Can't do it. And so for a work of art for your wall, you can buy anything you want and it can speak to you, but don't sell yourself short. If I stood with you in front of it and I said, tell me what about this work speaks to you, I bet you'd be able to do it. You don't have to, but I'm saying I bet you'd be able to.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Yes, hi.
I read your book shortly after it came out, and I was really excited to see you addressing these issues.
Thank you.
In the context of the last week at Chautauqua, people were talking about music, part of which is auditory.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if you have explored that area, because there are things that we can hear that we can't see, which are also informative.
Absolutely. It's a very good question, and the short answer is, yes, I've thought about it, but no, I have no expertise in the area. I love music. I am always amazed at the profound impact that music has on especially areas of medicine. neurodivergent learning, what medicine can do in so many areas of neurology, but I have absolutely no expertise. But my understanding is that applications of music, here's the way I can best explain it. The brain responds to looking at art in a way that it doesn't to any other stimuli. It also responds to music in a way that it doesn't to any other stimuli. So it engages in a kind of neuroplasticity. I firmly believe it. I have zero expertise in the area, but I do believe that it's very powerful.
What I'm trying to ask is, we hear many things that are not music, but they are important sounds.
Absolutely. It's the same, it's analogous to we see so many things that we're not registering, and we make decisions on our situational awareness those decisions are made by all of that information. The same is true by what we hear. When I walk in New York City, it can be an assault on the senses walking down 47th Street. You know, you hear so much, and I make many decisions based on what I hear. If someone is screaming in an incoherent way, I will cross the street. You know, if I hear teenagers getting off a bus, I'll walk in the other direction. So those sounds definitely affect our situational awareness, but I also believe there's a level of subliminal sounds that we don't even realize that we're hearing and that do make those decisions, same way we see information. So I think they're analogous, I just don't know about it. But it's a really good question, thank you.
I have one basic question and a random thought. So maybe
Sure.
that's two answers, or maybe that's one. The basic question is, how do you decide what works of art you want to invite people to look at? Because some have lots of information and some don't. The random thought is the basketball game where the gorilla walks through the middle of the basketball game.
Okay, good. So I'll take the first question about the works of art. I have an archive. People say, you know, what works of art do you use? And one of the most intellectually wonderful and challenging things is after I talk to, you know, the head of a drug task force or someone in the Secret Service, and I say, okay, what works of art are going to be most conducive to the discussions that I need to have with these people? Because they need to leave with tangible outcomes. So I think about works of art, and I have an archive of thousands and thousands, and I know no one feels sorry for me. I have to go to art exhibitions all the time because I have to see what's out there. I want to see what contemporary artists are doing. I want to, you know, I was in Madrid 4 weeks ago, because there was an exhibition of a woman, nobody in the United States had heard of Isabel Quintanilla. She's a still life painter. And what I saw online was so stunning, I said, I need to go to Madrid because I want to see these in person. And she made the extraordinary out of the ordinary. And when I think of people who have to look at ordinary situations day in and day out, the office of the chief medical examiner, they're looking at dead bodies day in and day out. How do they find the extraordinary? How do they find the tumor? How do they find the shrapnel? So I'm constantly revisiting my works of art, and sometimes I retrofit. I'll find some images and I'll say, you know what, I could use those with a certain group. So it's a constant back and forth. My poor family gets to see slides all the time of works of art. And so that's the part that I love about this work. And so seeing new exhibitions, seeing how curators, you know, when you go to a museum, it's not random that if you're in a room of Impressionists, why a Monet hangs across from a Manet and why a Renoir is next to a Degas. It is not random. They speak to each other. What are the connections? What are the dialogues? And I try to leverage those dialogues from other curators and other museums and bring them to my work with all credit given. The second question about the gorilla, I used to use the video. For those of you not familiar with this video, there's a very short video, and it has 6 people in a circle, and they're throwing a basketball back and forth. And the assignment is count how many times they throw the basketball. And you see people, 1, 2, 3. In the middle of this video, a gorilla, a person in a gorilla costume, walks in the middle, turns around, and walks away. And so when the video is over, you say, okay, how many times did they pass the basketball? And people say 6, 8, 10. I say, raise your hand if you saw the gorilla. People say, what gorilla? What are you talking about? And then I play the video again when they're not counting, and they can't believe that this gorilla walks in, turns around, and walks away. And they say, it's a different video. I say, no, it's the same video. What my takeaway from that is what's called inattentional blindness. What that video illustrates is a concept called inattentional blindness. When we are so focused on a task, we miss what's right in front of us. We miss it. It happens all the time. And so the gorilla illustrates you can be so focused on a task that you're not going to see what happens. Is it any question, is it any wonder we have trouble with eyewitness testimony? You're walking down Fifth Avenue. I know he was wearing a blue hooded sweatshirt. Were you really looking that closely to see that it was a blue hooded sweatshirt? In my home, I have a son, he's 21. When he was 16, he went to the refrigerator a lot, let's just say it that way. And one day he goes to the refrigerator and he says, "Mom," in his newly deep cracking voice, "Mom, we're out of mayonnaise." And I said, "No, sweetheart, it's on the second shelf with the cold cuts and the cheese and the lettuce where it's been for the 14 years that we've lived in this apartment. The mayonnaise is always on the second shelf." And I hear him take everything out and he puts it back in and he announces again, "Madre, we're out of Hellman's." I get up from the couch. Now, gentlemen, I don't want to make this into a gender issue of any kind, but when I open the refrigerator, why is that mayonnaise right where I said it was going to be? Why? Because we don't see what we're looking for. And so inattentional blindness is a huge issue. And the best answer I can give you is to go into situations knowing you're going to miss things. And that's where you say to people, "This is what I see, this is what I plan to do, is there anything here I'm missing?" And when someone says, "Oh, you're missing the gorilla," you'll say that, "What gorilla?" And I believe that multiple perspectives make for better decision making, and it's the best way to counter inattentional blindness, which is what the gorilla is. So it's a good question. I don't show it anymore because so many people have seen it, but it was really critical in my early presentations. Any other questions? Well, again, the rain held out. I am so glad I came, and I'd be happy to sign any books that you have. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Amy will be signing books right here at this table. Thank you for coming, and have a great weekend.